Well, it is great to see all of you here this morning. And before I get into today's message, I just want to take a minute to give a little bit of commentary about what happened last week with Easter in Lake Country. And my commentary is this. Wasn't last Sunday incredible? If I can give you a little bit of behind the scenes of what happened to make last Sunday possible, you'll smile and chuckle and say, Jason, why do you get to be the pastor? I don't know. They just gave me a microphone. As we got through Christmas this year and we got into January, and of course, in church world, Easter's next on the calendar, and it came early this year. And we said, well, what's our Easter plan? How many can we expect? What if we go all out on Easter? How many people could we possibly attract? And we thought, well, maybe if we brand it right, and that's where the idea of Easter in Lake Country came in, and maybe if we market it right, and maybe if we mobilize everybody around the community to invite everyone, I don't know, just maybe, 700 people would show up. Okay, I don't know, maybe God can't handle that, so we got prepared and we got ready, and we did all the work, and about 2 weeks ago, someone on staff had the bright idea to ask a question, and the question was, so what if God does more than we're asking or expecting? Panic. I don't know what we're going to do. So we scrambled last minute to make arrangements just in case God decided he was going to do more than we had planned on or asked for or hoped for. So we scrambled and we got things ready last second, and then we opened the doors on Easter Sunday at the Art Center, and we did not know what to expect. And people showed up, and then more people showed up, and then more people showed up. And apparently God decided to show up last Sunday because if you're new to Christianity, God is in the habit of doing so much more than we asked or we expected. And he definitely did that last Sunday when we just couldn't believe how many hundreds of people God brought to church. And we got a good glimpse at our platform as a church and how many people we can preach Jesus to as a church. And some of you who are new might say, oh, this is just another church that's about numbers. No, actually our church and my heart is to see people's faith in God grow big. That's what this church is all about. Whatever your background is, no faith, no church, got bumped out of church. I was talking to a couple before the service how we can get hurt in church really easily. Our goal, my goal, is that your faith in God would grow big. But yes, the numbers matter. The numbers matter because people count. People matter to God, so people matter to us. Jesus was lifted up on a cross to draw all people to himself. So we want to preach Jesus to as many people as we can. So if you're here for the first time or just new to Hope, we're honored that we can serve you in this way. This is why our church is here, and we want your faith in God to grow big. And what we learned again last week is that when God shows up, he does more than we asked or we expected. That's the kind of God that we serve. Now, the other thing that I think is so cool about last week is, to be honest, I had nothing to do with last Sunday. I am serious because I even asked our staff, hey, do you want me to help with that thing? No, Jason, you just preach the sermon. We'll take care of the details. Don't worry about the details. We're good. So they took care of all of it, and so many of you volunteered your time to make it possible. But here's what really happened. Here's why last week was successful, besides God showing up. It's because week after week, month after month, year after year, so many of you said, I'm going to be a part of the church that reconnects people to God who've become disconnected from God. I'm going to be part of the church that is for people who gave up on church. I agree that we need a church in our community that is for people who have given up on church, and I'm going to do something about it. And you serve. You help out in Kids Connect. You help out in the parking lot. You help set up chairs. You help make portable church possible. You give your time. You give your dollars, and the reason why is because you love Jesus and you love the people that Jesus died for, and you want to make a difference. And that's why it's an honor to be a pastor at this church, is because I'm surrounded by so many people who are so generous with their lives and want to serve others with their lives. And for week after week, we plant and we water and we plant and we water, and then in God's good time, God brings in a harvest. That's all that happened. You plant, you water, and then God brings in a harvest, because God is able to do more than we ask and more than we imagine. Which means I believe that God has more in store for our future as a church than I'm thinking about right now. And I believe He wants to grow faith in the lives of more people than I'm even imagining right now, because that's what God does. So for all of you who are a part of Hope, thank you for giving and being so generous. All of you who are new to Hope, we're here to serve you and love you. And if you decide this is the right church for you, we're going to invite you in to be part of the church that is investing in more people so that God can continue to show up and do more than we ask or imagine. So that's all I want to say about last week. That's my commentary. I'm not a reflective person by nature. That was hard for me to do. I'm all about let's take the next hill, forward progress, what's next. So coffee break's over. Time to get back to work, everyone. Today, we're starting a brand new series, and if you're bummed because you missed last Sunday and say, you actually picked a great Sunday to join us, especially if this is your first Sunday at Hope, because we're starting a brand new message series today called Upgrade. And the nice thing about being here for the first part of a series is you walk in from the beginning of the movie. If you come in like part 2 or part 3, it's like walking into the middle of a movie, and it's like, now who's that again? And why is he angry? And why does she want to blow stuff up? You just don't know. You're here from the get-go in the series. And today, we're going to start the series by talking about how to be normal and how to upgrade. Now, how many of you would prefer, by show of hands, how many of you would prefer it if people thought you were normal? How many of you would like it if people thought you were normal or considered you normal? Okay, some of you are not sure. Okay, it depends on the context, doesn't it? If you're at the doctor's office, you want to be normal, right? You want the doctor to say, well, you're normal. Okay, good. That's what I want to hear at the doctor's office. If you're at the art gallery, you might not want to hear you're normal because that would be a dig on you at the art gallery. It depends on the context. If you're in high school, that's probably a big drive to try and be normal and to fit into life and have other people think you're normal. Try to distance yourself from your family of origin because you know they're not normal. Maybe you can emerge from that chaos as a normal person. You don't know if it's possible, but you're going to try. All of us have spent time and energy in our lives trying to at least appear normal or be normal people. Now, that's kind of the starting point that we all have in common when it comes to life. In a lot of areas in life, we're just normal people. Now, there's a few things to know about normal. First thing is this: normal is easy. Normal is easy for us. Normal is our default mode. That's why we call it normal, because it's just we fall out of bed and it happens. You don't have to work at normal. Here's what I mean. When you look around our culture, it's easy to get into debt. It's easy to undermine your own marriage. It's easy to become worried and stressed out. That's why when we look at society in general, these things are normal. It's normal to be worried. It's normal to be anxious. It's normal to have strained relationships. Normal is easy. Now, I'm reminded of this pretty much every day in my own home. My wife, Kathy, and I, we have 3 kids, 3 boys. Love them to death, but man, they are normal kids. I'm sure your kids are special. My kids are not special. My kids are normal, okay? Normal is fighting. Normal is arguing. Normal is punching your brother. Normal is getting on your brother's nerves. You know what's not normal? Oh, let me help you clean your room, brother. What's not normal is you take the big cookie, I'll have the small one. What's normal is, no, play with my toys, please. Here's the remote. Just take my toys. That's not normal. Normal is getting under each other's skin. The good stuff isn't normal. Why can't the good stuff be normal? Why can't the good stuff be easy? But it isn't. It's the bad stuff that seems to be easy. This week on spring break, all 3 of my kids were sick at the same time with the fever. It's never happened before. Finally happened. All 3 of them, high temperatures, fevers, sick. And I'm telling you, there was 24 hours of peace in my home. They felt too miserable to be normal. That's how sick they were. And I'm like, it is so quiet. This is fantastic. And then Henry, the little one, the 7-year-old, he calls me. I was working at home one day, and he calls me, and he's doing one of those talk sobs. You know, a talk sob, and the little kid is like, Dad? And I'm like, oh no, is he going to be sick? What's going to happen? He says, Dad? I'm like, buddy, what is it? And he says, Alex told me to look at the bird, and when I looked, he slapped me. and I thought to myself, oh good, the kids are feeling better. We're good to know we're getting back to normal, because normal is easy. It's just our default mode in life. The problem is, as we get older, we don't grow out of that, do we? The unhealthy stuff is the easy stuff. It's the improving our lives that's the hard stuff. And that's the first thing to know about normal. Normal is easy. The second thing to know about normal is this. Normal is the enemy of better. Normal life is the enemy of better life. I mean, if you look at our world, normal isn't exactly the gold standard of quality of life. It is because we are surrounded by normal things that we live in normal ways. But every week as a pastor, I talk to normal people with normal marriages and normal finances and normal families who tell me about how they wish they could upgrade a part of their life, how a part of their life could be better, but it's just normal. And it's not better. They wish it wasn't normal. They wish it was better. Normal is the enemy of better. And the third thing to know about normal is this. Normal isn't working. Okay, normal is stressed, anxious. Normal is, I'm too proud to say I'm sorry. Normal is, I don't know how to talk about how I'm really feeling right now. Normal is blowing up with emotions. Normal is stonewalling. Normal is grind through another miserable day at work. Normal is grumble under my breath. Normal is sleepless nights. And it isn't working in our lives. Now, as Americans, we are constantly bombarded with messages to upgrade, next, newest, bigger, better, shinier. Here's my question. If normal isn't working in American culture, why do we settle for normal when you could upgrade? So here's what we want to talk about in this series. Don't be a settler. Don't settle for normal life. Upgrade. We want to learn how to upgrade in this series to a better life. And here's the good news. If you open one of the 4 biographies in the Bible about the life of Jesus, what you discover about Jesus is that Jesus is not normal. Jesus is better. And he invites you to follow him into a life that is not normal, but it is better. In fact, if you look at the things that Jesus said and Jesus did, Jesus was not a normal person. He said things like, love your enemies and pray for people who persecute you. And people in his generation said, that's not normal. Jesus said, no, it's not normal. It's better. Jesus taught things like turn the other cheek. And if someone asks you for your shoes, give him your coat, give him the shirt off your back, just be generous. People said, that's not normal. And Jesus said, I know it's not normal, it's better. But we're too busy settling for normal and being content with normal, all the while knowing that normal isn't working. So we don't want to be settlers in this series. We want to upgrade. Now, when I talk about upgrading your life or upgrading parts of your life, and you probably already know which parts of your life in which you feel you need an upgrade, I want to be clear what I'm not talking about. Here's what I'm not talking about. Normal is, drive a good car. So we think better is drive a better car. Normal is live in a house. Better is live in a bigger house. Normal is wear clothes. Better is wear nicer clothes. Normal is have good accomplishments. Better is have even more accomplishments, okay? We think that better is normal on steroids. Okay, if your version of better is here's normal stuff that normal people pursue and normal people do in life, and all you do is try to get a better version of normal, that's not technically better, that's just more normal. Bigger isn't better. We think bigger is better. Better is better. But when you take normal world, normal culture, normal pursuits, normal desires, and you say, well, I want a better one, I want a bigger one, you're just more normal. That's all you are. In fact, isn't it true that everyone you know wants bigger normal, wants better normal? And normal isn't that desire you have, that's not unique. That's normal. A bigger normal is normal. It's extra normal. We want to see what Jesus taught about getting away from that completely, from the whole system that's broken, to truly lead a life that is better and is upgraded. Now, today, we're going to get started with this series. It's a 5-part series. We're just getting the boat in the water to see if it floats, so you might have more questions than answers at the end of our time together today. That's okay. That's how I convince you to come back for week 2. But the big idea we want to talk about today is this idea right here. You've heard it said, less is more. Less is more. what we're going to see in what Jesus taught is he takes this to a whole new level. And he's not talking about standard of living. He's not talking about what you wear. He's not talking about where you live. He's not talking about how you vacation. He is talking about your pursuits in life. He's talking about the status of your heart. And we will see that when we learn in the heart and what our desires are on, again, not stuff, when we understand what Jesus meant when he taught that less is more, we take the first step towards upgrading our lives to lives that are truly richer, lives that actually work, and lives that are better. Because Jesus isn't normal, Jesus is better. And Jesus did not come to give you a normal life, Jesus came to give you a new life. So with all that in mind, today we're going to be in the biography of Jesus written by a guy named Mark, and we're going to be in chapter 10. We're going to look at what Mark said beginning at verse 32. It says, they were on their way up to Jerusalem. They was Jesus, his 12 apostles, and a big old crowd following along behind him. This is up to Jerusalem because Jerusalem was on a mountaintop. They were on their way up to Jerusalem with Jesus leading the way. This is so interesting. And the disciples were astonished while those who followed were afraid. So how's that for an entourage? Jesus is like speed mall walker going up to Jerusalem. The disciples are like, wow, something big is going to happen. The crowd that was always kind of gawking, they're like deadheads always following Jesus wherever he went. They always wanted to see a miracle, hear something new or cool, and they're just kind of afraid. Something has changed in the demeanor of Jesus, and they're not sure what's going on. Jesus is going to tell his 12 what's going on. Again, because he's done this before, again he took the 12 aside and told them what was going to happen to him. Here's what was going to happen. We are going up to Jerusalem, he said, and the Son of Man, Jesus referred to himself as the Son of Man, I'll tell you why another time, the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him and spit on him, flog him, and kill him. 3 days later, he will rise. Now, Jesus said this again because this is now the third time in Mark's biography where Jesus takes his disciples aside and gives them this same message. It happens in chapter 8, chapter 9, and chapter 10. Now, if you read Mark, what you will find, he is extremely economical in his words and in his storytelling. Why use 10 words when 3 will do? That's kind of Mark's approach to writing. So the fact that he mentions this on 3 separate occasions means that Jesus was repeatedly saying to his disciples, guys, wake up. This is what's going to happen. We're going to Jerusalem. I'm going to be betrayed. I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to be tried. I'm going to be mocked. I'm going to be beaten. I'm going to be crucified. And on the 3rd day, today we call that Easter, I will rise from death. So the disciples are like, Jesus has changed. And the crowd's like, what's going on with Jesus? This isn't the happy guy who's nice to little kids anymore. He's determined, this Jesus character. So that's the setting of what's going on. Here's what happens next. Then James and John, 2 of the disciples, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. Hey, Jesus, yeah, shucks, bummer about that whole betrayed and mocked and tortured thing. Oh, the crucifixion, that sounds terrible. Yeah, bummer. Hey, we got a question. Now imagine just starting a prayer this way. Dear God, I want you to do whatever I ask. Just the incredible audacity. This is kind of like, what Jesus would feel like if you have kids, right? Have you ever had a heart-to-heart with your kids because you have something so important to share with them? So you gather them around and you're in the living room, or you're at the kitchen table with your kids and you say, son, always remember, or sweetheart, never forget, this is so important, and you pour out your soul and you're pleading with your kids and you have this emotional moment with your children and you totally connect with them and you deliver your message to them and you say, now kids, do you have any questions for Dad? Can we have dessert now? It's like, did they even listen to a word you said? Or it's like, Dad, how come you have so much hair coming out of your nose? That's so weird. You're not even listening to what I'm saying to you. Jesus pours out his heart to the disciples. Hey, here's what's going to happen to me. And he's heartbroken about it. And all these bad things are going to happen because he loves them. And James and John are like, yeah, we want you to do for us whatever you want to do, whatever we want. Just do it, right? Now, Jesus is so patient. He doesn't say, why don't you back that truck up because you better approach me again in a respectful way. Jesus is so patient. He says, what do you want me to do for you? He asked. They replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. Okay, Jesus, whatever you're talking about with all this torture stuff, whatever, listen, we know who you are. We know who, we've been following you around long enough. We've heard your teachings. We've seen your miracles. We hear your parables. We don't know what they mean half the time, but we know you are from God, and we know whatever you're talking about happening in Jerusalem, we believe you're from God, and you're going to have a throne, and you're going to be large and in charge. So however we get to that destination, Jesus, what we want is for one of us to sit at your right-hand man, second most important person, and the other at your left, the third most important person right after Jesus. So Jesus, we know you're the most important person. We don't even care which one of us is right and left. That's how humble we are. We'll take either seat. Doesn't matter, Jesus. We want to sit with you in your glory. Now, what James and John want is normal. They want influence. They want prominence. They want prestige. They want what normal people want. And they want a supersized version of what normal people want. I mean, you want prominence, you want position, you want authority, you want prestige. Well, they're just going to the biggest level of that they can imagine. They want extra normal. That's what they're asking Jesus to give them. Jesus, we don't just want normal, we want the biggest normal that there could possibly be, and this is the biggest normal we can think of. We want to sit at your right and your left in your glory. Now, here's the irony here. Jesus is going to lead them to this. Where did Jesus reveal God's glory? It was at the cross. Jesus revealed the glory of God when he humbled himself and gave his life on the cross to redeem the world. When he said, I'm going to humble myself from my position of power and serve you by dying for you, we see the full brunt of God's love meeting God's justice and the full glory of God revealed as Jesus Christ gave his life. They said, when you enter your glory, we want to be closest to you. Jesus said, I'm going to show my glory. It's going to be at the cross. It's not what you have in mind. So Jesus said this to them, you don't know what you are asking. Okay, they think they're going to sit on thrones. Jesus said, I'm going to be crucified. That's where my glory is going to be shown. You don't know what you're asking, Jesus said. Can you drink from the cup that I drink or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? In other words, what he's saying is, can you possibly undergo the kind of suffering I will undergo? Can you undergo the same trial and pain I will undergo? We can, they answered. Jesus said to them, you will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. See, here's what James and John did not know. Their prayer would be answered. If you go forward in history, after Jesus rose on Easter, James was the first of the disciples who was martyred for his Christian faith. He kept saying to everyone he could, you should worship Jesus because he was dead and now he's alive again. We have a resurrected Savior. And that bothered people who hated Jesus. So King Herod had him arrested and beheaded in prison. He was the first martyr to die. John, his brother, was the only of the 12 disciples who was not martyred for talking about the resurrection of Jesus. Instead, he was arrested, he went on trial, he was found guilty. According to history, they boiled him alive in hot oil, and somehow that did not kill him. So they decided, we're going to exile you to an island in the Mediterranean. It was their version of Alcatraz, and as we understand it, he lived to be nearly 100 years old, all alone in isolation, the last one alive. They would drink the cup Jesus drank. They would be baptized with his baptism. They would undergo incredible suffering because they kept saying they saw the resurrected Jesus. But that was not what they had planned on asking for. Jesus said, these places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. Now, here's where the story goes next. When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. They weren't indignant like, guys, how can you say that to Jesus? He just poured his heart out to us. You're so insensitive. No, they were indignant like, hey, I called shotgun. I get that place. I'm more important. I'm Peter. I'm the leader of the disciples. No, Jesus, Peter's a hothead. You want us. Just indignant that they wanted to be first. No, we want to be first. The rest of the disciples were indignant with James and John. Jesus called them together. So time out. Everybody, come on, huddle up again. Gather round. Teachable moment. And said, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles, in other words, people who don't even know God, people who don't claim to care about God, those people who are rulers of pagans who are just far away from God, lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them, okay? You know that people who are far away from God do things that people that are far away from God do. And when they get power, they use it for normal ends, their own means. They take normal and they go down the normal path. What's in it for me? How can I get more out of life for me? How can I get more out of you for me? But it's all for me. That's normal. And when people get into positions where they have extra normal, it's still very normal because it's all about me. You know that people who don't even believe in God are seeking the things that you are seeking. You see, we look at James and John, and something inside of us says, what idiots. They should know better. What were they missing? Well, the reason why Mark includes this in his biography of the life of Jesus is so that when you and I read about James and John, we would not look at them and think they're idiots, but we would look at ourselves and say, they walked with Jesus and they didn't get it. I wonder what I'm missing. I wonder if I'm being an idiot. Maybe, like them, I have deceived myself into not even realizing I am pursuing the things that normal people pursue. That my life is really normal. It's really the path of least resistance, because normal is easy, and normal isn't working, but I just keep going down the normal path. What am I missing? Jesus says, this is what normal people do. And what he says next is interesting. Not so with you. Not so with you. Let's all say that aloud together. Not so with you. Jesus has little interest in helping you get a normal life. Jesus has little interest in helping you get an extra normal life or a better normal life. In fact, in your past, some of you went to God and you were frustrated with God because you asked God about your health, you asked God about your finances, you asked God about the dysfunction in your life, and you said, God, I need you to help me get further down this path, but your path was the path of normal, or more likely, it was the path of more normal or extra normal, and God did not help you down that path. Instead, He stood opposed to you in your path and said, I am not going to help you go down the path of normal. All you want is what lords and rulers of people who don't even believe there's a God want. Why would I help you with that? You are frustrated with God. God said, I'm not going to help you get to a destination where you don't want to end up. If you want what normal people have, then you should do what normal people do. If you do what normal people do, you'll end up in life where normal people end up. And when you look at where people end up in life, normal isn't working. So Jesus will stand opposed to your desire for normal, and when we seek to recruit Him to help us get to normal, He will say, no, not so with you. You know normal isn't working. It's time to stop pursuing it. Not so with you. Instead, He says, let's go back a slide. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you, whoever wants a better life, whoever wants to upgrade life, whoever wants to become great among you, must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first, the most upgraded, the best, must be slave of all. And he says in the next verse why that's true. For even the Son of Man, even me, myself, and I, did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. If there's anyone who is entitled to the best version of normal around, that would have been Jesus. Every time he walked in the room, he was the most powerful and most important person in the room. But what he says is if you truly want to upgrade, you must become like me. You must humble yourself and become a servant to others and a slave to all. Now, if you are not a Christian, you are going to look at the claims of Jesus and say, that does not sound like the path to better. In fact, the more you read about the life of Jesus and what he taught about upgrading your life, you will reach the conclusion that according to Jesus, the path to better actually looks worser. The path that leads to better life, upgraded life, looks like a path to a worser life. That's what it looks like. But before you dismiss Jesus completely, here's what I want to submit to you. Jesus had a career that lasted 3 years long. He had no frequent flyer miles. He had no internet, no cameras, hardly a way to get his message out. Yet, he was so great in his lifetime that today, in the United States alone, he has almost 300,000 franchises. And around the world, he has over 1 million franchises. Before you dismiss Jesus as not knowing what he's talking about, you have to at least consider this is the man who was the most influential person in all of human history. I think he knows a thing or two about living an upgraded life. And I'm just going to warn you, if you think about what he said here long enough, you might end up becoming a Christian in spite of the fact that you don't like all the ramifications of it. Just fair warning. Because he said, I am the Son of God, and I did not come to earth to rule. I did not come to judge. I did not come so that everyone would serve me. I came to serve. I came to give my life as a ransom. In other words, you needed someone to buy you back from your normal life. You needed someone to redeem you, to ransom you, because you were captive and a slave to your normal life. That's what Jesus did on the cross. That's why the disciples were astonished and the crowd was afraid, because he had such determination as he marched towards Jerusalem. Because he was determined by love to make himself a slave to your needs, to make himself a servant to your needs, because our sin separated us from God. He came to pay for that sin and bring you to God. And that's why Jesus became the most important person in history. That's why more hospitals have been built on the basis of his teachings. More universities have been founded on the basis of his teachings. More songs have been written about him. More art created about him than any other person in the history of the world. Because Jesus is truly great, and the reason he's truly great and we love him is because he made himself a servant to all. So what do we learn from Jesus? Here's what we learn. To get an upgrade, you have to downgrade. To get an upgrade, you have to downgrade. Not talking standard of living, not talking about what you drive, not talking about what you wear, not talking about your vacation. I am talking about, and Jesus is talking about, your ambitions in life. Is it your ambition to merely pursue a better version of normal, even though we know normal isn't working? Or is it your ambition to follow Jesus, who said, I'm going to humble myself and become a servant to all, and say, then that's what I'm going to do as well? The path to better looks worser, but Jesus shows it's the way we truly begin to upgrade. Now, you've got some homework for next time. It's going to lay the foundation, because we're going to get real practical for the rest of the series. But here's your homework to get ready for the rest of the series. In fact, most of this you can do on your drive home with whoever you came to church with today. First question, what is your normal? Okay? Most of us are so busy, because normal is busy and getting busier. Most of us are so busy we don't even have time to stop and ask, what is it I'm pursuing? What is it I'm chasing? What am I trying to build for my life or with my life? What is my life about? So Ask the question, what's normal? What am I pursuing? What is my life about? What am I trying to accomplish? What am I trying to achieve? What just seems easy to me? What draws me? What's normal? What is my normal? Take some time, figure that out. Second question is the not fun one. Are you pursuing a better version of normal or a true upgrade? As you pour out your time, your energy, is it just what everyone else pursues? Or is it an actual step towards upgrading your life? Third one is this. For whom do you need to downgrade? See, because if you're going to follow the steps of Jesus who gave his life up for you, that means you need to become a servant to someone else. And there's someone in your life that, frankly, you've been trying to use them or get them to serve you rather than genuinely loving and serving them. For whom do you need to downgrade, and what does that look like? Now, you don't have to do anything with the answers to these questions, okay? You don't have to change anything. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to serve anybody, but I think you owe it to yourself, because I think your time is too important to not know what is your normal and what are you chasing, and is there anyone you are not serving in your life? I think you should know the answer to those questions, because that will help you gain clarity on whether or not you just want another normal person walking around, or if you want to live a life that truly is better, because Jesus did not come to make you normal. He came to make you new. He came to make you better, even though the path to better many times looks worser. But that's the path of Jesus, who came to give his life as a ransom for you. All right, you've got homework for next time. We're going to pick it up there next Sunday. Let me pray for you. Jesus, thank you that you did not come to give teachings. You came to give your life. You came to give your life as a ransom for us, to redeem us from an empty way of life and from normal life, so that we can be children of God who live forever with you. Forgive us for being content with normal, even though we know normal doesn't work. Forgive us for wasting our time and energy pursuing better versions of normal when you offer us a life that truly is life. So as we sort through this in our own lives, because we're all in different places, would you give us your wisdom and perspective so that we can see what this looks like in our lives, and give us the courage to begin to trust you and follow you, because Jesus, you gave your life for us. Help us to be more like you, because we trust you that when you say something, it is for your glory and our good. We pray all this in your name, Jesus. Amen.